It's starting over there.
Almost the path. These cars won't jump the curb, but the city still can. They put it in place after we move the house. So we're going to go the route that we have. Don't stop the car. Go straight to the house. So we're going to stop the car. Right. Also, it doesn't really, I mean, this is the first time I've done this. It doesn't have, it is clean.
Okay, race car driver, slow down.
Slow down, let's go catch up.
Filming nothing.
What?
I said, I'm filming nothing. There's nothing there.
Does this help?
Oh, shoot. I forgot I'm filming. That's going to be on there.
We got to take the cap off.
I'm not ashamed to be
If we can get you guys out in front of the house, don't drop it, because I'll get shot for that too.
I got your head. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Now, when you fall on your face in the cake, I will have you on.
No, we wrote those apart.
Now, I took 4 feet where I can see the house. Okay. Do this.
You're gonna have to do this next time. Any idea what it's like to hold this thing outdoors?
God. Okay.
Yeah, right. I forgot all about it.
Inside, yeah. Yeah. Great. Whatever. I don't even need it. I don't need it.
Have you had the Italian?
You know, I have it. I have it.
And it's not
This is porch. I used to think, well, are they crazy to be talking about all the stuff they were going to do? And it's just the vision. The vision, yeah.
Oh.
but I need to try the
You go to the, where is it? Well, she said library meeting room.
There he is. He's standing. He's over the car.
Yeah, they always count the body.
2 minutes. Yeah, right.
And then
Oh, you do. I know that. She's home. Where did you get that?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, you need a drink.
Yeah,
She may be. She may make it.
So I guess we'll just wait. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Al. Happy birthday to you. Great. You like some crazy people.
Thank you.
I love those. I love the wild. And you know, I could move anywhere and I'm a chef or make meals, and yet I never was without such a and it's cake in it. I can't imagine why.
Miss Marilyn. John.
Same day.
But they sent him out about
So anyway, that came on. The first thing on there was buy cake and bring cake. And I was like, I haven't seen it yet. But I knew Sylvia saw it.
I want an edge
At least it's even.
I know, but that one point was very close. And I haven't seen. We've been like, happy birthday. Gosh, the wind came and blew it, and then she said, "You would have guessed it. They were down there all here." You all know this is going to be in the next video. It's going to be on YouTube now. It's the third time we've done it. Yeah, I'll go out and piece of cake.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. What a difference a year makes. We certainly don't come like that. Come a long ways. And I think when the house was still sitting back here, before they moved it to the site, Norris and I went down to see Mayor Brown on one of his first Monday meetings that we were visiting with him, and told him, PAPHA really appreciated what he was going to do here with the foundation and everything, and he just kind of went, ugh. So I hope you guys haven't been off more than you can chew. But he was just a little nervous with the house sitting behind him. But I think he's got to feel a little bit better about the way it sits here now. So, but we owe a lot of this to Bruce. Bruce just did a tremendous job. Even give us a bid, to get them to show up to give us a bid, and then they actually show up and do work. But he wrote it pretty good, and he did a great job. And then the garden club, I don't think we can say enough about what they've done. No. I think this is almost the crown jewel of Port A. To have this, as people come down Allister now, is just a tremendous thing. And then Mary Hammond, but nice.
Yes, where's Mary?
Oh, she's hiding.
Such a wonderful job, and I don't know if we could even do this without our docents. So if you're a docent, raise your hand. And I understand that Mary's had a little competition with the docents. So whoever's put in the most time, and I think what is it? 10?
Linda.
Well, I know Linda's done the most. How many years ago?
10, but we're probably going to end up doing 2 trips. Is
Okay.
Karen is still here?
No.
Okay, Linda had 50 hours and Karen Larson had over 40.
Okay.
Wow.
Wait, does pouring wine tonight?
Actually, it does.
But so we've had some great docents, and Mary had a competition for them to have a tour to the lighthouse, and I think also a flyover. Is that in
That'll be
in
in
the
the
fall?
early fall.
And Mark is going to do a flyover for the docents that have the most hours and everything. So if you're not in there this year, hey, you know, maybe next year.
Is Rick the pilot?
She must not be going to take the flight. So
She changed her mind.
But we would also like, before you all leave this evening, to sign our guest book.
Everybody.
In the lobby there. And then our board members that are here this evening, of course, Nancy Phillips is our president. Rick Pratt, who is our director of the museum. There you are. We have John Fusing. Christina Milligan. Bruce Reynolds. And myself. I think Chris and Randy must have taken the carts back. Yeah. So, but our board has done a great job in putting, and of course Rick in doing the displays here. Then we can kind of watch the video as the evening goes along, but I'd like John to kind of just give us a little bit of the history of our museum. Then Rick is going to kind of tell you what we're doing now and what we hope to do in the future. And Bruce can kind of give you a little overview on our finances that we have. So,
Hey, John.
I'm not going to tell you about the museum, but I'm going to say very, very briefly, you know, that everything that fleshes out, like the museum here, has to have a skeleton in order to put the meat on it. Well, maybe my contribution was starting the skeleton about 6 years ago. When we had all this to do about, you know, the new buildings being built with all the glass and all that kind of stuff, I ran into this little thing from Texas Historical Commission saying we're starting a new program recording visionaries in preservation for those people that want to preserve the history of their community. And it was like just 2 years old. It was not a lot of mileage on this program. And so I said, I think that's something we ought to be involved with, because this is kind of what we're looking for. And so we sent in a request. The first summer was like just a couple months after we really got organized, and our original so-called board was just people that were kind of interested, and eventually we formed our group, we got incorporated, and then we sent in everybody on the board, and Guthrie was one of them, and Beverly Charles, and Marcy was one. There was a bunch of them. Yeah, Betty was.
No, Betty was not.
Yeah, she came along very.
I was.
Pam.
Yeah, Pam. Yeah, anyway.
Hello?
Marilyn, where's Marilyn?
Marilyn?
Marilyn? Nancy?
Anyway. Sent in a second request. We got the money, and that started
The Sunday brunches, you remember?
What goals we wanted to establish and the whole business, and I know a lot of you were involved in that. And among the goals that we wanted to do as the Preservation Association was a museum, preserving, our old town stuff, preserving sites around town that had historical significance, educating the young people, in terms of the history of this place, and several other things. And all of those came out of this visionaries and preservation thing. And it wasn't just the idea that we had a process, but it was the idea of getting the award. And from that, then Betty and all the other people came in, and the funding, she got so many grants for us and recognized, and it just sort of snowballed from that point on. I think you know what snowballs are, but anyway, we don't know a lot of them. Anyway, so, and that's what, all culminated in this. And, from the point where the museum, the building became a possibility, I was really just sort of moving along with the momentum. But it did, I just say what it take, it took a little contribution on the part of these people just to be brave enough to start off and say, we need a historical association in Port Aransas, and that was kind of the start. And all of you should give yourself lots of credit for, starting that in, because it's not easy to start a new organization. And to come this far in 6 years, it's just quite amazing. And it's due to all of you. It's not necessarily me. And I think.
You're here to John.
I came in just a little bit before we got our first historical survey done. Betty found a grant, got the money, hired a group to come up and do a $10,000 survey of what we had in town. I thought, well, what a rip-off. At that time, I was serving on the city council, and I'm used to looking at every little price tag and saying, that's too much. Yeah. We can't afford that. You're going to have to cut this down. So, wow, 10 grand to do this. Yeah. This gal shows up, and it's her by herself, and she drives around town, takes a bunch of pictures. So, wow, are we getting ripped off or what? But she produced a document. And the document had photos of all of the old houses in Port Aransas. And it identified our architectural type, which didn't exist prior to that. We gave it the name of coastal. And she identified this house as, quote, the crown jewel of Port Aransas. Shortly thereafter, I was hooked. The thought of building a museum just sort of comes upon you. This town needed a museum. It needed something to represent its history. It needed some place to tie it down, to pass it on to the next people, to tell the story of Port Aransas, because it wasn't being told. We had a lot of attempts and a lot of contributions, but we never had really gotten hold of it and made it a project. This house became available quite by accident when the family that owned it decided it wasn't going to work as their summer escape. So they were going to instead build townhomes around. And that meant the house had to go. That put us in action. 2.5 years ago, this was a conversation. Now it's a museum. So this lady identified, first off, PAPHA got formed, and a bunch of people said there is history here. and it's important. Second, we identified the town itself, the old town. We gave it a presence. And incidentally, at that point, some of us began whispering, Old Town, Old Town, Old Town, all around town. At council meetings, everywhere we went, Old Town. Now everybody says it. Old Town is real. It exists. And everyone knows it. You know, it always had that cachet. It had that existence. It had that persona. But it didn't have a name. There was some argument at first that it should be the historical district. I said, you know, that sounds a little dull. It's Old Town, and that's what it has become. So Old Town existed, and then this house became available, and we went to work. We went to work hard. And we slugged, and we arm wrestled, and we got down in the mud, and it was a bare knuckle contest. There was a lot of struggles. And the three most common statements were, A, you can't do it, B, there's no history in Port Aransas, and C, hell, you could build something cheaper and you could save this damn little place. That's what we faced. Now, within that 2-year period, we raised the money, we moved the house, we wrestled away a site on Main Street in Port Aransas and created the entry plaza for the town within that short period of time. Because a few people got together and worked very hard, and because the idea was there. The time had come. It was an idea whose time had come. You've heard that before, right?
Yes.
This time we experienced it. Sure enough, it just carried us right along. Now, each of us has carried this thing a certain distance on our backs. Betty Bundy started that charge. She wouldn't shut up. She wanted us to buy the place, $465,000. Then by the time we got around to looking at it, he wanted $5 1/4. Well, you know, it was one of those moving targets. We couldn't do that. We couldn't buy it. Then it would have been over there. It would have been okay, but, you know, it needed to be somewhere else. So finally, I got into the fray, and we dealt with the owner, and we leased it from him. And we had to pay some bucks to lease it from him, and we caught a lot of gaff over that. But it was necessary to control the process to lease this house. So we leased it and began to get to know it. Then we brought in Mr. Lara. Mr. Lara came over, General Joe Lara, came over, looked at the house, gave us a bid, $16,000 to move it from there to here. Then we also heard a storm. My God, you're going to pay $16,000 for that thing? I mean, hell, you know, you could build one cheaper. Yeah, right. Then it was, where did we put it? So we put a committee together of people who were movers and shakers around town and said, where should we put this thing? And there it was all over the board that this is where we ended up. This really was the prime spot. Now, I had promised Mike Hall that I would never use his name in public as the guy who suggested that this be the location for the house. But he's the guy. He took Dick Betty up and said, let's go over and measure this spot. So they came over and measured the spot and said, yeah, it'll fit. Then they handed it off to me. So then became the struggle. So finally, everyone on the council, everyone on the Boatmen's Association, and a few people in town agreed it should be here, and we got it. Then came the move, and lifting the wires, and all of the things that come in there. And finally, we get it set down, and I fall in a heap. And a guy shows up that has all the talents we need. He showed up a little bit earlier, and his name is Bruce. He's standing right back there. He stepped up, voluntarily accepted the job. The challenge, it was not a job at that point, it was a huge challenge. There wasn't even a job. And he put the project together. He also was the treasurer, so he knew how much dough we had. And it was amazing the amount of money we had raised by then. And it's even more amazing how little we spent to get this whole thing together. And we'll leave that to him because he knows his numbers. So he came along and took the job and brought it forth. He got this house fixed ahead of schedule, under budget, and without scandal. The last time that was done was when we got to the moon. It's true, you look it up. I'll be happy to debate it with you. Finally, Bruce collapsed in the heat, and we had a conversation on the front porch. He said, I'm handing it over to you. And I took on the initial job of trying to make it into a museum. And at some point, late at night, I thought, this place needs a director. Because if we don't get a director and lock ourselves on this project, it's not going to happen. And like an idiot, I volunteered.
Yay!
Now, proving there is no fool like an old fool. The truth of this whole thing is that it's almost been divinely guided. Someone has come along at every point that had the talents we needed to get this project done. And it's really been quite amazing to watch. So here we are, the museum is in place. Now, we got our first exhibit up, and once again we all fell on the heap. That would not have happened except for two things. One, my wife, Cameron Pratt, and two, 6,000 plus historic photos that Mark Creighton has been collecting for 25 years. Talk about foresight. He not only collected them, but he began archiving them. He's not here. He's in Florida taking care of his mother who fell, whacked her head real hard, and had a cerebral hemorrhage. Actually, it started out pretty good. She was invited onto a 96-foot, extremely expensive mega yacht for a party and slipped down the stairway into the, I don't know, it's not called a stairway, but it's a circular stairway, companionway, I guess, it goes down. So he's over there taking care of her and can't join us, but his gift to us was all these photos that showed us, yes, indeed, there is a history of Fort Aransas. So each of us has come along, at a certain time, someone stood up, they can do the job. We're here right now, we've got the exhibit on the wall. Next step is to create a program. Now, we can't exist with just exhibits. We have to have a program. So now we have to begin to write those things which teach people about the history of Fort Aransas. We have to go into the schools, we have to go out to the colleges, we have to go online, we have to create videotapes. We've got to, no more tapes, excuse me, video discs. We've got to do that whole thing. So the next big push is program. You might be in my future. Bruce, will you take over? Okay.
Well, my speech is not near as interesting as it is. But what we want to share with you just a little bit is how we run the museum financially. I'll say we are financially sound. We have a nice sized bank account, and we're working very hard to make this thing continue forever. So it's not just a one year process. The way we budget and the way we run it is all of this work that you've seen here. We've taken a pay-as-you-go approach. When I was building this thing, we'd get up to a point and I said, hold on, we got to stop at this stage until we've gone out and raised some more money. So we built it as we went to have the money here. And so as we've gotten to the point where we have a building, then it becomes a little easier to do fundraising projects and do some of the other things that we're doing, because people really believe it's going to happen. It's there. It's no longer just a wish that we can make this happen. So the way we keep the doors open, and it's been said many times, is our volunteer. Our volunteer network is just tremendous. Our docent program under Mary is just, without it, we wouldn't be there, period. It's the only way we can stay open. So the way we fund the operation is the way we've done our budgeting, including Rick's, modest amount we pay Rick, and we pay him a small amount to do this management for us. Our daily operations, which is our utilities, our insurance, the supplies, everything that keeps this thing open, the days that we're open, is funded from our memberships of individuals. All of you, I think, are members, or most all of you are members. But we have a whole town of members. And so our annual membership is one of our major funding efforts. The next one is our corporate memberships. And we made a major drive this year to include a lot more of our corporations and our businesses in town to be members. And And we made a major step forward, and we have farther to go in that arena. But that's our daily operation funding, as well as what we collect from people that are donating, coming through the doors, to visit the museum, in our gift shop sales. So that's what we fund the daily operations with. Now, we got to build exhibits. We're a long way from where we plan to be with our exhibits. As Rick pointed out, this is just the first thing to get the doors open. And we're going to have some very creative exhibits. And some of those exhibits are going to cost us money. So how we do our exhibits is all our fundraising activities. The band concert that we had, the online live auction and dinner that we put on here. We've had several fundraising events hosted by what I call Friends of the Museum. And we've gotten people together that have made donations. So all of that goes into the pot that we say, that's what we got to do our exhibits with. And, when we did our original budget for exhibits, and we hired a number of exhibit companies to come in and say, what is it going to cost us to do the amount of exhibits that might fill up our museum and give us a first-class museum? And the number was always around $200,000 for all those exhibits. Well, we're not at $200,000 in our fundraising efforts, but we're going to take it a stage at a time now. We've visited with a number of museums, and they've come back and said, don't try to do all of that at once. Do them 20,000 here, 20,000 there type activity. So we're now into the next phase of creating the next set of exhibits, which I think everybody will be proud of. But that's how we do it. That's how the fundraising. We're sound, and we're alive and well and moving forward.
We're still right.
Daddy wants to say we're still selling bricks. We've got lots of them sold, and we have made a lot of money on bricks.
And we have lots of vacant spots that.
Lots more bricks can be sold.
You're welcome.
You too. If you wander around, your name's not on get one of those pads.
We continue to take orders. Rick has another item he wants to say.
No, you can't have another.
Okay, sure, go back. It's Pam here. Oh, someone take the camera out of her hand.
Oh, yeah. Did you get that? Get up there.
Each stage of the game, someone that shouldered a huge load, right? Throughout the game, she has shouldered a huge load. She has been is our communications person. And she is the one who got the word out when the rest of us would forget to. As recently as today, when I realized I had forgotten to invite the mayor to make a comment. Or somebody did, so I'll take credit for it. Pamela has been with us from the beginning, has been our communications person, and still is.
I think there's a couple other folks we need to thank also. I'd like to thank John Guthrie for being here. He's got several books on the history of Port A, and they're in our gift shop, and we make a little bit of money from him off of his book. He has done a tremendous, and he's always got some really neat stories in our newsletters, so I appreciate him being here. Coming to see this for But just thank all of you, and I think we probably might have, is there a couple more bottles of champagne? Why not? We can have wine or champagne and cake, if nothing else. So, but thank you all for coming, and like I said, it's been a wonderful year. We've come a long way in a year. I think it's a lot to accomplish in a year.
Oh, it's
see from the looks of this house,
Yeah,
as we brought it over here. It's like,
As John Guthrie Ford said, there is no future in history.
I was so wrong.
to El Paso for the Texas Association of Museums annual meeting, and we really met some tremendous folks over there who really gave us some helpful hints, and even a lady that said, "Oh, but you ought to do a fundraiser in Austin." Okay. You put it together and we'll do it. We did one in San Antonio. We've done one here. So hey, let's go to Austin.
That's right.
We're ready to go. So, but it was a great meeting to attend, and well, recognized led the way at the meetings. Cameron, she and her grandmother had to go sightseeing, so she got to have fun.
She helped you all these pictures.
Yeah, she does the pictures. And now that she's in retirement.
History for my granddaughter. And yes, I'm retired, and you know, this is kind of like.
Are you staying busy?
One of our professors at the university, when he hires someone, it's illegal to say, "Is your wife involved in science too?" But for some reason, he always gets the wife to work in the lab too. So you got me. You got a deal.
So thank y'all. Don't forget to sign our book, and maybe we'll see you back here next year.
All right.
Absolutely.